My name is Bella, and I'm 31 years old. For the last 3 years, I've lived with my husband, Jerry, and his parents, Henry and Marilyn. Jerry is 4 years older than me, and while I manage all of the household responsibilities, since I stay at home, his parents, both in their 60s, remain active and healthy. In fact, Marilyn, Jerry's mother, is a particularly social woman who enjoys maintaining a busy social life. Despite not working outside the home, Marilyn doesn't participate much in the domestic chores, often leaving everything to me. Occasionally, she'll tell me to take a break, but if I don't get everything perfect before she comes back, she's quick to criticize. I've tried to talk to Marilyn about it, explaining that it's impossible for me to get everything done before she leaves. She dismisses me, telling me that managing everything is just part of being a woman and that my generation simply can't handle things the way hers did. She often compares me to Jerry, praising his work ethic at his prominent job and pointing out how proud she is of him, while simultaneously implying that I don't measure up. Jerry's response to these comments is less than comforting. At dinner, when Marilyn complains about my housework, Jerry just mutters, "Oh, really? It's like he doesn't even see how much I do." When we first met, I admired Jerry's maturity, given his age, but now, I feel like I'm nothing more than a housekeeper. Even when I stay up late, working hard to maintain the house, it feels like I'm invisible to him. He doesn't confront me directly, either. Instead, he'll toss laundry in my direction and bark at me to handle it. It's hard to recognize the man I married. He's so different now. On our first anniversary, he brought me a cake, but then he thought it'd be funny to smash a pie in my face and laugh about it. I've come to regret marrying him. There is one person in this house who offers me kindness, Henry, my father-in-law. Unlike Marilyn, Henry is calm and always checks if I need help with anything. He's the only person who truly makes me feel seen. Since I left my job to marry Jerry, I've come to rely on him as a confidant. My affection for him has grown, and I almost feel like he's a real father to me, someone who genuinely cares. Unfortunately, Henry works during the day, so I often find myself alone with Marilyn. That's when things get difficult. Marilyn has started to accuse me of flirting with Henry, all because Jerry neglects me. These comments are made when Henry isn't around, and when I deny them, she just mocks me, asking if I'm feeling defensive. No matter how much I try to explain that it's all baseless, Marilyn never listens. She always has a sharp comeback, and no matter what, it feels like our conversations never lead anywhere. I tried to talk to Jerry about the accusations, hoping he would see that his mother's suspicions were unfounded, but he just laughed it off, making a joke about me being interested in older men. It stung. I never expected him to start helping with chores or to put an end to Marilyn's mockery, but I never thought he would react this way either. It's becoming increasingly hard to feel like I belong in this house. One summer, Marilyn brought up the idea of a family trip during Jerry's summer break. At first, I thought it was just her usual enthusiasm for getting everyone together, but when she asked if I wanted to join, I was caught off guard. I didn't think I'd be included, and I assumed they would leave without me. When I hesitated, Marilyn's face turned suspicious, and she questioned why I wasn't eager to go. Her sudden invitation made me feel uneasy, like there was something more to it. I couldn't put my finger on it, but I worried about how she'd react if I declined. Later that evening, Jerry brought up the trip again, seeming oddly curious about whether I planned to go. I mentioned that I had been invited, and Jerry burst into laughter. I was confused and uncomfortable, so I asked him why he thought it was funny. He just waved me off, claiming it was nothing. On the day of the trip, it was just Jerry, Marilyn, and me in the car. Jerry drove, Marilyn sat beside him, and I was relegated to the back seat. Henry couldn't join us at first, as he had work, but it was just the three of us, and the ride was tense. When we passed the inn where we were supposed to stay, I asked, "Did we just pass the inn?" Jerry gave me a vague answer about visiting a tourist spot first, but there was something unsettling about his smile. The further we drove, the more isolated the scenery became, and my unease grew. I tried to calm myself but couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. We eventually arrived at a small, remote dam with hardly any other people around. Marilyn suggested we get out and stretch, and Jerry warned me not to leave anything valuable in the car. As I stepped out, I noticed them hesitating, as if they were fiddling with something in the car, and then I heard the click of the locks. It was only when I looked up that I saw Jerry laughing. "Are we staying here for the night?" I asked, my voice trembling with a mixture of confusion and anger. Jerry just laughed harder. clutching his stomach, while Marilyn sneered at me. "Have fun out here, Bella. Maybe you can eat some grass and sleep under the stars." My wallet and cell phone were still in the car. They had set me up. As they drove off, I stood there in shock, feeling the weight of the situation. "Well, this is just great," I muttered to myself, trying to hold back my tears of frustration. Despite the heat and the risk of dehydration, I remained calm. About an hour later, I found myself at the inn where we had originally planned to stay. As I walked into the lobby, Jerry looked at me like I was a ghost. "Why are you here?" he asked, bewildered. "Did something happen at the dam?" I didn't even bother responding to him, just showing him the key to my room where I had already dropped off my luggage. Marilyn looked like she might faint, while Jerry became agitated, demanding I give him the key to their room. But I wasn't backing down this time. I was done with their games. Just then, a man stepped forward, holding Jerry's hand firmly. "Sir, please refrain from causing a disturbance," he said calmly but with authority. The man was the same age as Henry but taller and more imposing. I recognized him immediately. He was the owner of the inn, a man I knew well from a past visit years ago. "You saved my daughter's life," he had said to me back then. I remembered how he had thanked me for calling an ambulance when his daughter had collapsed on the road. He had even invited me to stay at the inn without charge, and I had taken him up on it several times since. As he stood between us, I knew he saw right through Jerry and Marilyn's plan. In fact, I had set up a recorder in the living room weeks ago, capturing their private conversations when they thought I wasn't around. When I found out their scheme, it shocked me to my core. Now, with the inn owner by my side, it was clear that the tables had turned. Imagine the weight of being scrutinized for your relationship status at a certain age, as if the course of your love life must adhere to a rigid, socially defined timeline. Love and companionship, which should be about individual connection, are often treated as milestones to be checked off, an unfair burden, an unwarranted judgment. Yet life has its own pace, and sometimes, our stories unfold in unexpected, unplanned ways. This is Jennifer's story, a tale of love, disillusionment, and the quiet strength that emerges from resilience. At 35, Jennifer had experienced the highs and lows of life with a quiet yet unyielding strength. Once a dedicated office clerk, she had transitioned into the role of a housewife, a position she had never envisioned for herself but one she had come to accept. She embraced the simplicity of daily life, finding joy in the small, seemingly mundane moments that now filled her days. Her journey to love had been winding and unpredictable, but it ultimately led her to Stephen, a man whose confidence and warmth had initially drawn her in. Stephen worked in the transportation industry, driving a light truck for deliveries. His job allowed him to return home each evening, which had, at one point, brought Jennifer comfort and hope for the stability and connection she longed for in their relationship. Their love story began at work, where Jennifer, initially taken by Stephen's casual charm, found herself drawn to his natural ease in social interactions. He had a way of making conversations flow effortlessly, free from pretense. It was Jennifer who took the first step toward him, her heart guided by an unexplainable certainty. To her delight, Stephen reciprocated her feelings, and what followed was a whirlwind romance. Within 8 months, they were married, both filled with hope and dreams of the future. They were sure they had found in each other a lifelong partner, a soulmate with whom they would build a life full of promise and joy. But love, Jennifer would soon discover, is not always as it seems. The tenderness that had once defined Stephen's demeanor gradually faded, replaced by an unsettling impatience and cruel bursts of anger. The man she had fallen for, the one who had made her laugh with his gentle teasing and warm humor, was now a stranger. Verbal outbursts became all too common, and Jennifer began retreating into silence, doing her best to avoid triggering his unpredictable moods. What she had once seen as a partnership of equals now felt like a delicate balance, where peace was a rare commodity, and the silence between them grew louder with each passing day. Despite the growing tension, Jennifer held on to hope, clinging to the belief that change was possible. She wanted to contribute to their household financially, dreaming of the independence that would come with work and the possibility of building a future together. She envisioned saving for a home, perhaps even starting a family. But when she broached the subject with Stephen, her hopes were quickly dashed. His reaction was swift and harsh, anger flashed in his eyes, and his words struck deeper than she had anticipated. Fear, not love, began to replace the once solid foundation of their relationship, and Jennifer found herself questioning everything she had believed in. The breaking point came during a seemingly ordinary family gathering. Stephen's family had always welcomed Jennifer with open arms, offering her a sense of belonging she hadn't expected. Unlike Stephen, who kept his relationships private, his family treated her as one of their own. Thanksgiving at her in-laws' home had always been a cherished event, an escape from the constant strain of her home life. But on this particular evening, a harmless joke about his relative's wife quickly took a turn. When Stephen joined in, his words were cruel and cutting. He compared Jennifer to another woman, insinuating that she lacked a certain femininity, a remark that stung deeply. Though he seemed oblivious to the hurt it caused, the laughter in the room continued. But to Jennifer, it was like a wave of humiliation crashing over her. Only her father-in-law seemed to notice her discomfort. Without missing a beat, he suggested that Jennifer help in the kitchen, offering her a timely escape from the painful scene. Inside, Jennifer's emotions overwhelmed her. Tears fell silently, each one carrying the weight of months of bottled-up pain. Her mother-in-law, ever perceptive, enveloped her in a tender embrace, offering the kind of comfort only a mother could. Meanwhile, her father-in-law addressed the gathering with quiet authority, demanding an apology for the cruel joke. The others complied, but Stephen remained steadfast in his stubbornness, refusing to acknowledge the harm he had caused. It was a moment that deepened the growing rift in their marriage, one Jennifer could no longer ignore. From that night on, things changed. Jennifer's visits to her in-laws became less frequent, her once strong connection with them slowly fading under the weight of Stephen's growing resentment. At home, the walls seemed to close in around her, and every action felt like walking on eggshells. Their apartment, located on the 6th floor, mirrored the emotional confinement of her marriage, a place where she felt physically and emotionally trapped. The days that followed were some of the darkest Jennifer had ever known. Loneliness clung to her like a heavy shroud, and despair began to take root in her heart. It was in this fragile state that her sister, Susan, arrived unannounced. 2 years older and ever youthful in spirit, Susan had not planned to visit, but fate had other plans. She had been overseeing renovations at her new club and, on a whim, decided to check in on Jennifer. From the moment Susan entered the apartment, she knew something was wrong. The bond they shared, one forged over childhood and strengthened by years of sisterhood, allowed Susan to see beyond Jennifer's forced smiles and weary eyes. Concern immediately clouded her features as she read the quiet desperation in her sister's posture. Unable to hold back the flood of emotions any longer, Jennifer finally let herself break down. She confided in Susan, sharing the painful truth of her marriage, the isolation, the fear, the overwhelming unhappiness she had come to accept as her life. Susan listened intently, her anger barely contained. She was ready to storm into the apartment and confront Stephen, but one look at Jennifer's fearful face stopped her. Susan understood that force would not resolve this situation. Her sister needed more than just outrage. She needed a way out. With unwavering determination, Susan proposed a plan. It was bold, risky, perhaps even reckless, but it was the only path Jennifer could see toward reclaiming her life. Could she really break free? Was it possible to escape the shadows she had lived under for so long? With Susan's steadfast support, Jennifer found the courage to take the first tentative steps toward a future that was her own. The road ahead would not be easy, nor would it be immediate, but for the first time in years, there was a flicker of hope, one that burned bright enough to pierce through the darkness. What followed was a journey of strength, of rediscovery, and of the quiet yet unbreakable resilience that comes when one dares to believe that their life can be something more.